This is from CNN earlier today. And I know there's lots of online tempest as people argue different sides, and they've tried to argue, the base for Trump does not want him to strike in any way Iran and keep nuclear weapons from being there. This would in some way betray the America First agenda. I disagree with that, and so do the vast majority of you. We're going to play this cut here in a moment, but let me just say this. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. One of the great things about America is we don't have to agree on everything. And in fact, by having discussions, debates about what we do and do not agree on, we oftentimes are going to get to a better result. The reason why I read the New York Times and the Washington Post every morning is because I want to know the arguments that are being made by many people who disagree with me. And I am open to the idea that sometimes they might have arguments that make sense that I should consider as a part of the arguments that I'm going to discuss with you on any given day. Conflict, one thing I wish we could talk more about, conflict is good in public life. Without conflict, there is dictatorship. The most important right that we have in America is the right to disagree. The First Amendment is the most profoundly important of all of our rights. So the fact that every single person doesn't agree on every single issue is in fact good. And we should debate and discuss robustly all different sorts of ideas. And over time, the best argument should win. This is probably the most foundational belief I have in my life. To the extent I believe in anything, I believe in the marketplace of ideas. This is why I was so troubled when suddenly in the Biden administration, they're restricting our ability to share stories on Facebook or YouTube. When YouTube wouldn't allow our interview with President Trump that we did with him at Bedminster to be posted because they didn't like some of the things he said, that's the antithesis of the entire American democratic process. You should hear everything that every potential elected official says. You should contemplate them. You should consider them. You should weigh whether you agree or disagree. They wouldn't post Rand Paul's interview with us while Rand Paul was running for re-election in Kentucky. Every Kentuckian out there should be able to hear every single thing Rand Paul says. Every American should be able to hear every single thing the President of the United States says. You should weigh it. You should consider it. You should contemplate if he has the best arguments. All of these things are foundational. So the fact that Tucker Carlson might disagree with me on whether we should drop a bomb on Iran to wipe out their nuclear facilities, or the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene might disagree with the president if he decides to do that, that's fine. We don't all have to uniformly agree on everything, particularly when hard decisions have to be made. Ultimately, when you vote for president of the United States, do you know what you're voting for? Judgment. You are voting and saying some of the most difficult decisions that have to be made, the president is going to sit right behind that resolute desk, and there are going to be people that make arguments in multiple different directions to him about what he should do, and then he's going to consider all those arguments, and he's going to make what he thinks is the best decision. Sometimes those are really hard decisions. In fact, if they make it all the way to the president, they very often are very hard decisions. How to handle Iran's nuclear pursuit is not an easy decision. If it were, it would have been decided a generation ago. The fact that it's still being decided by the president is a testament to how committed, in my opinion, Iran is to getting nuclear weapons, which actually is super rational. Like, take yourself out of the United States and pretend that you were religious fundamentalist Ayatollah Khomeini. And the Ayatollah was sitting there in Iran, takes power in 1979, and he says, I want my religious clerics, I want the mullahs to be in power here for the next 1,000 years. What can I do to make sure that that's going to happen? If I were an Iranian, I would advise them, and I was trying to keep the mullahs in power, I would say, sir, you should get nuclear weapons. That is a rational decision by him. He looks at Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I wish Kim Jong-un didn't have nuclear weapons in North Korea. Guess what? The odds of us taking out North Korea and reuniting the Korean Peninsula, which I think is what would be the best thing for global commerce, peace, and the growth of human rights in the world, becomes almost impossible if we have to consider, well, we got a crazy guy with nuclear weapons. There's no telling how many tens of millions of people he might kill. We'll just unfortunately have to allow North Korea to be a crazy, backwards, totalitarian nation. The same thing would happen in Iran if they got nuclear weapons. The Ayatollah gets it. Most Americans get it. In fact, even CNN's Harry Enton this morning was discussing on CNN that the vast majority of Americans, independents, and Democrats, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, all Americans, overwhelmingly agree that Iran should not get nuclear weapons. And then a substantial, overwhelming majority of Republicans actually believe that Trump should be willing to use American force to keep that from happening. Here is what it sounded like on CNN this morning. Play cut 13.
There's been a lot of talk online and on social media and in podcasts of a divide within the Republican ranks. But here on this question, if Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon, look at that. 69% of Republicans, the clear vast majority of Republicans, favor U.S. airstrikes on Iran, on their nuclear facilities. But there is this substantial minority, 27%, who oppose such an idea. So it's not surprising you're hearing those other voices besides Donald Trump out there. There are plenty of them in the Republican ranks who oppose the U.S. striking Iran if they're trying to make a nuclear weapon. But the clear majority of Republicans are with Donald Trump. If, in fact, Iran is trying to make nuclear weapons, they do, in fact, potentially favor U.S. airstrikes.
Okay, and it's around 80% of Democrats, Republicans, and independents in that same clip that agree Iran getting nuclear weapons is a bad thing. Now, some people are saying, well, America First would never support this. America First doesn't mean that we have to rely on other countries just choosing not to bomb us. America First means we should protect Americans first. I agree with that. And Americans are protected more so if fewer crazy people have nuclear weapons, which could kill, theoretically, millions of Americans in the future. I don't see this as a difficult decision. If Donald Trump, who has consistently in his career, is being advised that by attacking this mountain in Iran, where they are trying to create nuclear weapons, that we could once and for all wipe out the ability of Iran to get nuclear weapons, that seems to me to be the very foundational element of America First. Now, and around 70% of Republican voters seem to agree. Now, larger context, what should we do beyond that? I think that's actually the difficult call. My concern is if the Ayatollahs are left in control of Iran, they are not going to give up on getting nuclear weapons because it is eminently rational of them to want nuclear weapons. Doesn't mean that it's better for the world, but it is eminently rational of Iran to want nuclear weapons. Why do you believe that Iran is suddenly going to say, oh, you know what? We don't want nuclear weapons. This government, since 1979, has said death to America, death to Israel. They can't have nuclear weapons. If we agree on that, and most of us do, then the next question is, do you believe they're ever going to stop trying to get them? The analogy that I made yesterday was it's a little bit like antibiotics. For those there that have an illness, you start taking antibiotics. If you take your entire antibiotics, you kill the infection. If you take half of them, you risk the infection coming back stronger and now antibiotic resistant because you haven't killed the virus. The virus in Iran is the Ayatollahs. If you don't kill the virus, eventually they may come back stronger than ever because I believe they are not going to stop trying to get nuclear weapons. That is the more challenging question. If you buy that, which I think is true, then the next question becomes, okay, what do we do to try to address that? Do we take the next step and support Israel killing the Ayatollah? Do we think that Iran would let the royal family come back in, and that would in some way make Iran a freer, safer place, not only for the people who live there, but for us in America and for those of us who believe in Western civilization supremacy around the world? Those are really difficult questions. I trust Trump and his advising team, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, all of the individuals in that room making arguments to be making the best, broadest, most intelligent arguments. And now we have to figure out, hey, what is the right choice? That's where we are right now. The right choice for many of you, if you want to protect your families, Rapid Radios. Go to rapidradios.com, use code radio right now. You get up to 60% off. These guys are from Michigan, my wife's home state. They've built a great business. The Rapid Radio is something that can be reliable for you in the event of massive storms, hurricanes, tornadoes. These things hold a charge for 5 days. They work nationwide. You're going to be able to communicate when in many ways it is very difficult to communicate. We talked about this before. Buck's sister-in-law, when the big storm hurricane hit Asheville and did so much damage to western North Carolina, she was able to communicate with her dad on the Rapid Radios when almost every cell phone network was down. We have these in my house. They are charged. They are ready to go for 5 days. My wife wants them in the event that we need to be able to communicate, but also because our 10-year-old is not going to be getting a cell phone, unfortunately for him, until he's 14. And if we want him to be able to communicate with us when he's running around in the neighborhood, or even if we're out and about as a family, we're going to be driving on a couple long trips soon, maybe in different cars. Remember back in the day when you used to be close and maybe you had the G.I. Joe walkie-talkies, you could talk from one car to another. That was super cool in a pre-cell phone era. You can still have that possibility and that opportunity all over the country. Get hooked up right now, rapidradios.com. Use code radio, 60% off. That is rapidradios.com, code radio.